This is my presentation on ancient Greek wrestling, and this will be the first and second parts where I explain some of the rules and certain moves that are depicted through different pottery and sculptures and paintings. So let's start with the first part. So the rules were that there were no time limits, and the opponents had to score 3 out of the 5 maximum points. Um, a point is awarded when someone has, or the opponent has his back to the ground, and it touches both shoulder blades or to the ground, or he goes out of bounds. Either he is carried, pushed, or is fleeing, going out of bounds, or they concede or submit the point because they are in a precarious hold or situation. The person is trying to, make them submit because they have them in a deadly lock or something like that. Also, there was no eye gouging, no grabbing of the genitals. Chokes were permitted, as well as those dangerous holds that could, dislocate things and potentially break some others. All right, so I'm gonna now show some of the moves that we see as sort of the most common. Now, these moves are really, we really see these moves only in the statues and the pottery. So those are sort of our main sources. I mean, some of them are talked about in different stories, but the pottery and sculptures are sort of our main source. So the first move is an ankle pick, where you push down on your opponent's head and causing them to put all their pressure and weight forward on their feet, and you then, as you're pushing at the same time, you pick up their foot or their ankle, and causing them to fall down onto their back. This is a pretty effective means of scoring a point. Now then, you have a waist lock. A waist lock, you can use it in a couple of different ways. You can either do it from the front or from the back. And from the front, it's sort of more of a bear hug, where you can do a couple of different things from there. You can trip them, you can try and lift them, things like that. Sometimes you can, if you're a really big guy, you can just kind of crush them down like a big bear hug. And if you're from the back, you can try some of the same things, and you can either try and trip them or just lift them up and sort of bring them down. Uh, then you have a reverse waist lock, which you get into similarly because it is like the waist lock in that you lock around them, but instead of them being vertical or you being in sort of the upright wrestling position, this is sort of when you wrap around, you grab them when they're sort of more on the ground or they're sort of attacking lower towards your legs or something. So you sort of wrap around their waist and you can hoist them up like you see in this statue. Um, and then you have sort of the shoulder throw as another move where if basically you can get one arm and sort of capture that arm, you can throw them over your shoulder and basically put them onto their backs from there. This was really great if they were pushing into you a lot, and they were just sort of driving into you because you could use their momentum and really fling them onto their backs pretty well. And then you have a bunch of common submission holds. This was just sort of a basic one where you're putting a lot of pressure on the shoulder blades and the shoulder area, and basically causing a lot of pain and maybe even dislocating something, and making them concede and give you the point because they're just in a tremendous amount of pain and can't do anything. And those are some of the basic moves and the rules that you see. Now I will actually demonstrate most of these now. Right now, I'm going to demonstrate some of the moves that the ancient Greek wrestlers would actually use most often. Now, because the rules were far different than they are now, uh, being that you can choke people, there's submission holds, and the whole point is to get your opponents back to the ground at any point, and there are no time periods either. So some of these moves are different from what you would see now. All right, so one of the first things is that taking people down is a little different because originally, when if I were to shoot in, because chokes are allowed, if I just sort of go in at him, he can just choke me out the entire time. And just I could either submit and he'll get a point, or he'll just choke me out, can't breathe, and put me to my back. So when it did happen, what they would do is they would either try sort of different trips or different variations of things. So we're wrestling here. I push down on his head, push it down, and then just pick up his leg. And he'll just fall down onto his back. Now you have other forms of trips as well. One of the most common ones was when you wrap around them, and this is also another common place to be, is sort of the waist lock. So if I get around him, I get under his arms, I can crunch here, and I can just trip, bring him back. That way, or really any other way. Another reason why that was so common was because, if you get a really big guy, one example was Milo of Crotone. He won the Olympic wrestling medal like 6 times because he was just so huge, and he literally could just wrap around and crush people's ribs, making them submit almost instantly. So that's one of the things you can do from there. Also, there's other variations of the waist lock. If I get behind him, somehow, for whatever reason, I can lift him, bring him back, and then put him to his back somehow like that. And then there's another way where you can get into it to a number of different ways, either them trying to shoot in on you or anything like that, and it's called a reverse waist lock. So they go down like that, and you pick them up here, lift them, and then you can bring them down. You can do that in a couple of different ways. If they're going pretty fast at you, you can just kind of roll them over. Let's see. Another one, which this is called a shoulder throw. Basically, if I can, if we're wrestling around here and I can get one arm and sort of isolate it, if I can grab it, come around here, and throw him over. Now those are some of the most common standing wrestling positions and moves. Now, there is also ground wrestling a lot involved where, if people they scramble around and they don't want to get taken down really. So if we get down, basically, here, there are a number of things you can do. One of them being you can literally just try and choke your opponent out. That's perfectly legal. Another being you can literally, if I can get his arm, I can literally just try and dislocate it. You see this actually in a lot of the Greek statues and paintings on pottery and other things. Now also, you can simply try and pull him over and roll him over. Like if I get his arm captured, and I can just try and yank him over like that. It's another thing you can do. Or I can literally, if he was really trying to resist me or something, and then I can just pull him back. And those are the most common wrestling moves, and this is my demonstration.